Yo, it's Kyle, another video, and the title of this video is Attachment Leads to Suffering. And what I mean by that, got my tea here, settle in. So attachment leads to suffering. I'm sure you've heard that before. If not, I think that attachment leads to most of our suffering. Attachment to people, to relationships, to your material possessions, to your title, whatever it is, your job, whatever it is that gives you that sense of identity, that gives you that confidence. That attachment leads to suffering because you have to realize that all these things are temporary. Everything in life is temporary. Every relationship you have, everything you own, all your clothing, your car, your house, your title, your job, it's all temporary. Everything in this physical world you will lose eventually. That is just a fact of life that people don't always talk about. They're always kind of living in a state of denial where we think if we get that job, we get that wife, we get that status, that will make us happy, then we get cling to that, and that could be our sense of identity. That will give us that happiness that we've been looking for. But all these things that we become attached to eventually leads to suffering because we're trying to stay in a specific moment. We're trying to stay and attach ourselves to people. You know, if you're trying to attract a beautiful partner, you become attached to them, they become your sense of identity. That gives you that confidence, that gives you that sense of worth. But all those things, you know, that nice house that you want to buy, the nice house that you might own, or that car that you own, these are all good things to have. When I say that attachment leads to suffering, that doesn't necessarily mean to not pursue things, to not pursue a nice job, to not pursue nice clothing, to not try to find a beautiful relationship with somebody, to not own possessions. It is just the fact, like they say in Fight Club, the things that you own end up owning you. And that goes beyond just material possessions. It goes beyond the things that you own mentally, the people in your life, your friendships. At the end of the day, you're going to have to let go of those things eventually. And it's important to not become attached, to not attach your sense of worth, your sense of identity to these things. It's important to live in the moment. It's important to really have some sort of spiritual guide, something that gives you a sense of purpose, that gives you a sense of worth beyond the material world, beyond, you know, the world that we live in where everything is, you know, in the social media age that we live in, it's so easy to become obsessed with wanting the hottest thing, with wanting the newest clothing, and to attach your sense of worth to those things, to attach your identity to those things. And it's important to realize, and this is also a very attractive quality that you could sort of develop, where you become detached. That doesn't mean you don't care. It just means that you, even if like in the things that you do, you become detached, it is really beneficial to your growth and to that attractive energy that you can cultivate, where you don't become attached to people. You know, you still have your friendships, you still have your family and these things, but you detach your sense of identity from these people, and you don't necessarily need it because you realize life is fluid. Trying to cling to a particular person, a particular job, a particular identity is going to lead to suffering because you're going to have to let go of that eventually. It might not be tomorrow, it might not be the next week, it might be a couple years from now, it might be a couple decades from now, but eventually, if you become attached to these things mentally, you're going to suffer. And a lot of suffering, you know, there are suffering that we can't control, like death. We can't control, we can't control certain sufferings, but The pain is necessary, but the suffering is not. Because when you let go, you realize that life is fluid, that life is ever changing. You might not live in the same place tomorrow. You might not have the same things tomorrow. The same people might not be in your life. Think back 5, 10 years ago and all the people you were friends with. Are you still friends with a lot of those people? Chances are no. And even if you are friends with some people you were 5, 10 years ago, chances are most of the people that aren't like close family, a lot of the people in your life have changed. And that's okay, that's part of life. People grow apart, people move, people get married, people have kids. And when you become attached to certain things, you become attached to, maybe you got a lot of happiness from, going out with your friends when you were younger. But now those friends have moved on, they've got careers, they got things going for them. And that was your sense of purpose, that was your happiness. But it's important to keep letting go, to not become attached, to become detached to these things. To become grounded in the present moment, to become grounded in something beyond material possessions, something beyond the physical world. Because eventually, whether you accept it or not, and if you reject this idea, it's just going to cause more suffering, because who has escaped this? Who has overcome attachment? Who has overcome, having to let go of these things? Eventually, you're going to die and you're going to have to let go of these things. Eventually, people you love are going to die. It's entropy. It's the natural state of life where things will come and go. Things will decay over time. Relationships will decay. Your house will decay, your car will decay, and that's okay. Things will decay, that's okay. It's important to not become attached, to live with a sense of detachment, to be okay with things changing, to embrace change, to go into the new day with open arms, with an open heart, and not cling to things. Go with the flow of life. Life is ever flowing, and you want to go with that flow. You don't want to resist it. You want to let go each moment, each day. Let go. Let go of your attachments to people. And it's a really hard thing to do. That's why breakups are so hard, because you become attached to that person. You also become very attached to that mental story of this person. You tell yourself that this is you, this relationship is you. You have this story that you tell yourself of how you met and how you always wanted to marry this person. Maybe you did marry this person, and now this is like a story that you tell yourself, you tell other people. It becomes your sense of identity. And then maybe you guys split up, and now there's that pain, because now you have to rebuild yourself because you were so attached to that relationship. Think about, this is something that always sort of bothered me when I'm in a relationship with somebody, and I think it's just something that happens, but people attach your identity to that person and say, how was your guys' weekend? What did you guys do? And it's like you become attached to them. People will attach you to another person without you wanting to be attached to them. You want to be your own separate thing. At least I do. I don't want to be, even if I love my partner and we're super close and we love each other to death, I realize that I don't want to be, I'm separate from that person. I'm not attached to that person. They are their own person. We might conjoin in this relationship, but we are not the same. And a lot of people attach their sense of self in their relationships, in their career, in their job. You might lose your job tomorrow. You can work in the most stable company. You can have one of the most higher up positions. You could be self-employed, have your own business, and you could lose it all tomorrow. And if you are super attached to that, if that was giving you your happiness, you're gonna suffer, because you might not lose it tomorrow, but you might lose it eventually. And I'm not trying to come from a place of nihilism, of a place of no hope, of a place of negativity. I'm coming from a place of reality, and also there's a beauty to it. There's a beauty to the fluidness of life. There's a beauty to how things always change, and I want people to let go and to embrace the ups and downs and the ever-changingness of life, because that is reality. You can't, if you reject that, you're rejecting yourself. You're rejecting the true nature of reality, which is going to cause more suffering. Try it. Become attached to things and see how it ends up. Attach your sense of worth to your things and your relationships and your possessions and the titles that you give yourself and these diplomas and these things that are good to pursue, but once you become too attached to them, you will suffer. You know, you hear like pro athletes, they become depressed after they retire because that was their whole life. That was all they knew, was being a linebacker or quarterback or playing baseball. And if they get injured and they have to retire, or they just become older and they have to retire, they have to rebuild that sense of identity. They have to let go of that attachment to that sport, even if that was providing them millions of dollars. Even they had to let go of that. Even your heroes, celebrities, your famous musicians, eventually they're going to lose their voice. Eventually they're going to lose their talent. And that's part of life. That's the fluidness of life. You either accept it and go with the flow of life, or you deny it and you suffer. And suffer in this case is a choice. So anyway, keep letting go and practice detachment. Peace.